Welcome one and all to Geek Boulevard. Steve here with your movie review of the week. The last review of 2024, no less. And what a fitting way to close out this year with none other than a gothic horror film. And that film happens to be Nosferatu, a remake of the 1922 film that I've been highly looking forward to. I saw the movie and I am very happy to be sitting down here sharing all my thoughts with you guys, the good, the bad, and of course, my overall verdict. Spoilers are going to appear later in this review, but like always, I've included timestamps right down below, and you can skip the spoiler section so that you can preserve your experience for this film. Nosferatu is the latest film from Robert Eggers, who is of course writing and directing. The film is rated R with a runtime of 2 hours and 12 minutes. In the 1830s, estate agent Thomas Hutter travels to Transylvania for a fateful meeting with Count Orlok, a prospective client. In his absence, Hutter's new bride, Ellen, is left under the care of their friends, Friedrich and Anna Harding. Plagued by horrific visions and an increasing sense of dread, Ellen soon encounters an evil force that's far beyond her control. I'm going to start with the good here, and there is a lot of good to be had in this movie. I have to give tremendous praise to the collaborative efforts of both Eggers and cinematographer Jaron Blaschke, I hope I'm saying that last name correct, who worked together on all of Eggers' previous films. With Eggers' direction and Jaron's eye, they have delivered a definitive gothic horror film that is both unique in its delivery in the sense that it's most definitely a Robert Eggers film. This feels like his style, but also broad enough to appeal to a wider audience that perhaps may not have been a fan of Eggers' previous works in the past. Like me, for example, I will stand by The Witch. I love that film. The Lighthouse I was a bit mixed on despite, the good performances from Dafoe and Pattinson. The Northman I still haven't seen, but from what I hear out of all of his past films, that's probably the most palatable as it has more action elements in it so people can kind of digest that film a little easier. This movie feels like the culmination of everything Eggers has done before and learned from. And I was just blown away by the production value, the period accurate representation of 1830s Germany, and the dialect even. Like, he had everything down to a T. He really made it feel as authentic as possible along with the rest of the production team. So this film deserves so much praise for that alone. Also, our main cast is just top notch with Lily Rose Depp as our main character, Ellen. And I hope that she at least gets nominated for Best Actress at the Oscars. I will not be surprised if she wins, as this was clearly an emotional and physically taxing role for her to play. There's a lot of scenes of her just like convulsing and contorting her body in all these ways and kind of just acting possessed because she's being influenced by Count Orlok. She just blew me away with her performance, and she deserves all the praise that she gets for it. Nicholas Hoult also turns in a great performance as a state agent and husband to Ellen, Thomas Hutter. He plays a very, in a way, a fragile man in terms of his insecurities and wants to provide for he and his wife, which leads him to meeting Count Orlok, because there's a lot of money involved in securing a property for this mysterious figure in Germany. His encounters with Orlok, which were the best moments in the film for me, definitely change him, and you see that he becomes a much different man by the end of the film because of those encounters, and he wants to do everything he can to end this darkness once and for all, to save the woman he loves. Hoult has been having a really successful stint lately with this film, Juror Number 2, which I definitely recommend if you haven't seen it already, and I have also all the faith in the world that he's going to crush the Lex Luthor role in Superman. He's just such a great and versatile actor, and he was just phenomenal in this. I'm sure you're gonna hear this a lot, and you probably have heard it a lot by now, but Willem Dafoe was also great. He's Willem Dafoe. Really not much to be said there. He acts very zany. He's playing a Swiss philosopher, sort of like a Van Helsing character. His name is Von Franz, I think is how you say it. He believes in alchemy and the occult, and our main cast have to essentially seek out his aid in order to understand this dark link between Ellen and Orlok. And I enjoyed his performance just as much, despite, his crazy delivery just being really out there, but that's what you get when you have Willem Dafoe in a movie like this. Now, speaking of Count Orlok, my God, the practical makeup alone is Oscar worthy. I would be shocked if they don't win anything for this, because they completely just made Bill Skarsgård disappear. He's nowhere to be found in this character. He is Count Orlok. Normally that can be a detriment to an actor when they just kind of disappear into a bunch of makeup and prosthetics and all that, because you want to still be able to see the actor in the performance, but he just disappears into this character and you only see and hear Orlok. And my jaw was just on the floor every single time that he was on screen. He just commanded such a presence. They're very careful in showing his full appearance. He mostly is in shadow and kind of out of focus just a little bit, giving him that sort of dark, otherworldly quality to him. And when that moment comes of him being fully revealed, I will admit at first I wasn't too keen on the look of him, but it started growing on me throughout, and by the end of the film I actually appreciated this version of the character, and I see why they took this approach to the character. This is Robert Eggers' version of Nosferatu, but it may divide some people, but me personally, I grew to like it over time. His voice as well is so commanding and deep, and I actually felt the vibrations like in his voice, and every time he breathes it almost sounds like he's in pain, and it sounded nothing like Bill Skarsgård, again, just disappearing into that character. And I cannot praise him enough, not just for this role, but as an actor overall, to really just revel in, the transformative freedom that acting can give you. He really enjoys that type of aspect of acting, and it just shows on screen so much. On so many levels, this adaptation of the Dracula story, it just worked for me. But Nosferatu is not without its drawbacks. So let's get into the bad. Now, even though I loved the performances in this from pretty much the entire cast, I forgot to mention Emma Corrin, she was great in it as well. There's one that I wasn't too crazy about, and I feel like I'm eating my words here because I defended him in my Craven the Hunter review, but Aaron Taylor Johnson just wasn't clicking for me. The best way I can describe why I felt this way is when you compare his performances to the others in the film. He came off very stoic and almost stiff. The film sort of feels like this very elaborate, high-budget play, and every actor felt present in the scene at the time and almost felt as if they had no idea that like an audience was watching them or that a camera was on them. They were just so invested in their characters in those scenes to really notice that. Johnson, to me, felt like he was aware of the camera, aware of the audience watching. I felt like he wasn't really as present, so I was left a little underwhelmed by his performance. The runtime here, I think personally, hindered the experience a little bit. If maybe like 15 minutes were kind of trimmed off the runtime, it would have been a much more tighter experience, absolutely. I'll get into the specifics in the spoiler section, but I think this could have been a much more effective film had it been under 2 hours. Speaking of spoilers, this is going to be your spoiler warning. So if you do not want to know more about the story, as I will be talking about the later portions of the film as well as the ending, I suggest you skip this section and go to my overall final verdict of the film. But if you still want to stick around, you're more than welcome to do so. As I stated before, the runtime I felt was a slight hindrance to the overall pacing. The middle section of the film is where the pacing tends to take a little bit of a dip. Once Ellen is linked to Orlok and he proceeds to haunt her dreams and force her to act strangely, everyone else involved in the story is trying to figure out why she's acting the way she is and who this dark individual is that has been taking this hold over her, which leads them to bring von Franz into the picture since he has experience with this kind of darkness, with this kind of thing. Once Orlok is on his way to Germany, he brings with him rats that carry the Black Plague, and they start infecting the town and killing people, so his influence over this place is very strong. But that whole sequence, to me, could have been much shorter in its execution, as the amount of time it took for them to determine that it's been Orlok controlling Ellen just seemed like it was stretched out a little too much to kind of fill that space. I actually really liked the quiet ending that the film takes. Ellen sacrifices herself to defeat Count Orlok in a very poetic kind of way. She willingly gives herself over to him and he proceeds to start feeding on her, and not knowing that dawn is fast approaching. And as he feeds on her, the sun starts rising, and obviously vampires and sunlight don't really mix too well. And as he's looking out through the window and the sun is rising, and he sees that fate has kind of finally caught up to him, and he starts screaming in pain because the sunlight is, burning him away. And he seems to kind of just accept it, and she dies with him as he pretty much drained her of all her blood. So the two of them pass on. She sort of peacefully goes while he goes painfully. I just thought the contrast of that was, very interesting. The sun just fills the room as the plague of the town has been lifted and the influence of Orlok is no more. I just thought it was a very beautiful and poetic and tragic ending, It's a very tragic film overall, so for it to end that way, I'm not really surprised, but I did appreciate that type of ending. In conclusion, I'm giving Nosferatu a score of 4 out of 5. Robert Eggers puts his unique stamp on the classic vampire in this remake that provides very haunting and beautiful cinematography all throughout, and is the culmination of all of his work up to this point, and it works so well. The cast is fantastic overall, and Bill Skarsgård's transformation into Count Orlok is nothing short of amazing. I can't even put into any more words how good he is in this film. However, Aaron Taylor Johnson's performance seems rather underwhelming compared to his co-stars, and I felt the pacing of the film could have been made better had a few minutes been shaved from the runtime. But what did you guys think of Nosferatu? Have you seen it yet? Where would you rank it on your list of Eggers films if you're a fan of his work? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and remember to like the video if you enjoyed, and sub to Geek Boulevard, tick the bell so you can be notified whenever new content drops on the channel. Stay tuned as I'll be doing a rundown of my most anticipated movies of 2025. This one might take a little time to upload, but it is in the works, so stay tuned for that. It's probably going to be the first video I do of 2025, most likely. But that's it for me. Thank you for watching. Hope you all have a safe and happy new year. Until next time, remember to always keep it geeky.